Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mlk Day 2021 Show Up, an intergenerational online experience to help bring us together as a community and to hear from our community and to learn from our community. We have so many amazing speakers today, and we are so grateful for everyone who has put their time and energy into making this online experience happen. Before we begin, I want to take a little bit of time for us to be able to acknowledge the land that we are standing upon, the land that you reside upon, that you live on, that you go to church, that you go to work, that you go to school on. Wherever you are. It's not only important to recognize that lands that you reside upon are indigenous lands, that the people who lived here prior to colonization still live in these lands to this day. As a Native theologian, I am a proud member of the Oglala Lakota tribe in Pine Ridge, South Dakota. However, I acknowledge and know the history of the land that I walk on and that I live on today. My ancestors lived here. But I also know that so many Native people around the United States are very present in our communities. These land acknowledgements are such an important part of who we are in learning and wanting to move forward and showing up. But please remember, those land acknowledgements are more than just words. So I encourage you to show up in your land acknowledgements. Invite Native voices, learn about the history of the land and hear those voices. There are so many resources out there that you can use to teach yourself and also to teach your community that you reside in. Teach your children. Find some books. Find some movies. Find documentaries and other things. Bring people in on your Zoom meetings or to preach if you go to church. Bring those voices into your community and learn and hear and understand about the land, because when you understand not only the history of the land that you are on and who it belongs to, but when you take the time to truly understand the connection that you have with the land, with the world, with the creation around us, that God made us just so intricately beautiful and connected, that if you understood that connection, if you understood when we say in Lakota Matakio Eawasi, which means we are all related, it's not just a phrase, it's a prayer, it's a life, it's a way of life, a way of understanding that when we are all related, we are not just talking about humans, we are talking about all life. And all life is so important. And it is so important for us to show up and take care of each other. Not because we have to, but because we want to. Because we want to show up and be a part of community. Sometimes showing up is not the easiest thing to do. Sometimes it hurts. For those of us who have been waiting for the rest of our community to show up with us, we carry a lot of hurt and pain and trauma. But that doesn't make us stop. That doesn't make us stop to want to create a better world. That doesn't want us to stop meeting new people, learning about new people, and helping our communities, even through the pain and the hurt and the trauma that we may carry. When we show up in our communities, it's so important to understand how your body feels. Because there are times when you may see something, hear something, smell something that will trigger something that will bring some trauma back. Learn how to recognize what your body tells you so that you can have a conversation. You can have some time with your body to understand what is going on. Why are you so upset? Or it could be, sometimes I even ask myself, what did this make me so happy? Why did this moment make me so happy? Because I want to understand what my body is telling me and how I feel. And by doing these things and taking care of myself, I know that I can go out into my community and really help and not cause more harm. When I go out into my community, I go out being invited, but I go out my full, authentic self so that I can be my best self for others. And then that helps us care for those who are hurting. When we know how we are feeling. And if there are times when showing up is difficult, it is okay to step back when others are doing something and showing up. But it doesn't mean you stop. Our care for ourselves helps us care for the community. And when you are part of such an amazingly beloved community, you begin to find so many people that will care for you. So in times when we struggle, when we don't know what to say or what to do, it is okay to ask for help. It is okay to offer help. And it's okay to accept help. Even sometimes when it is so hard to do. Because by accepting that help, by offering that help, by asking for help, you are showing love. You are bringing love and your full self to that person, to that community. And you're allowing that love to come back to you. As communities, it is so important that we care for each other. Because showing up, it means so many things that you are going to hear about today. But if you cannot take care of yourself, how can you take care of others and show up? So find those times where you can have some peace. Maybe it's a walk in the neighborhood, or listening to some music, or reading a book, writing a poem. Find ways to be with you so that you have those moments of healing. And in those moments, you can teach your children. Sometimes it's just letting your children go and listen to some music or play and be silly in their room for a while. What they don't know is that you're giving them time to be able just to be and to heal themselves without them even knowing, but it's a simple act. So there are ways that we can teach our children how to be and how to protect themselves so that they can show up in the community, because as you will hear a little bit later from my son Kieran, children can change the world just as much as adults can. We all have the power together to create change, but we have to show up together to make that happen. So thank you for being a part of our day today. As you go through this experience today, please take some time to listen. Listen to the stories. Really listen. If there is something that makes you uncomfortable, ask yourself why. If there's something that made yourself happy and excited, do the same thing. Ask yourself why. And then search for that in your life. Share these stories with others and be a part of your community by showing up. We thank everyone that came today to listen and to learn and to help our community. You have the opportunity today to give back to the community with H Cubed. You will meet the 3 co-founders of this amazing organization in North Minneapolis in Minnesota. Hear their stories and reach out and help them help their community. You will find the links to be able to do that, to donate online today. You'll also find a couple of books that we will read today that you will be able to easily find in your bookstores and online. And thank you. Thank you for showing up today. Bye.
Hi, I'm Jenny Sung. I serve as a pastor at St. Andrew's Lutheran Church in Matamidi. And the assignment is to talk about when we showed up for community. And the more I think about the times that I tried to show up in community, the more I think about how I never thought I was worthy. I always felt like I had stumbled into the VIP room and I didn't know how to act. I didn't know what to do. And I found myself before people that were expecting something from me. And so I did whatever I could to share what I thought needed to be shared. But what I really recognized is that God calls us in particular times and places to really show up. Not because we're worthy, not because we deserve it, not because we have all the accolades, not because we can do it well, but because there's something inside of you that matters, that needs to be heard in this particular time and place. And so whether you think you're worthy or you're not worthy, it's time to rise, beloved. It's time to trust that wherever you go, beloved community will meet you, even if it's just in the form of another person, the God who holds you in those hard moments. But what I know right now more than anything is that you're needed, that you have purpose, and that you matter, whether you believe it or not. You know, that's the thing that I love about all the call stories in the Bible. None of them either wanted to do it or felt worthy of doing it. Jonah really actually just didn't want to do it. Moses stuttered. The other many disciples were like fishermen and like really low on the totem pole, and like wherever you think you are, whatever you think you are, you're called. You matter. And we need you. Because right now there are a lot of loud voices sharing who they think you ought to be, who you need to be, how you should be. And what the world really needs is to know who you are in all your beauty and all your brokenness. I serve a fairly large congregation, and as a person who was abandoned on a bus at the age of 2, an orphan, put into foster care, and then adopted into the United States, I didn't really think that I had anything to offer anybody, because there's so much of me just trying to figure out who I am to begin with. And yet God called me to serve this very large congregation. Not because I felt like I was worthy or because I deserved it or because I was good enough, but I had faith that God would move. And so, fast forward a few years later, here I am, and I put up a post on Facebook to share with my congregation some of the things that happened to me as a person of color that they just might not be privy to, because Maybe some of them just don't have friends that experience the same things I experience. Maybe some of you do. I was standing on a street corner and somebody felt the need to just yell out their window that I was disgusting, that my appearance was disgusting. I don't know if you've ever had anybody call you disgusting and mean it before, but as much as you don't want to, that cuts deep. And so I shared on social media. I was in my collar and I just shared, like, this was my experience as a person of color, as a woman of color, as a clergy person. This is my experience. People think I'm disgusting. And then I said it, and then I went on a meeting that was like 90 minutes long, and I came back to my social media, and 400 comments later, I was astounded at the way that people showed up. And I just sat there in awe. One comment of hate, of malice, of hurt, and one person's willingness to show up vulnerably and share the hurt that happens honestly in this world became a tidal wave of compassion, of generosity, of love, of kindness, of hope. 700 reactions later, mostly filled with hearts and thumbs up and like the care emoji. I thought I was showing up for a community to share just the experience that it is as a person of color and a clergy woman. And dang it, that community showed up for me. And I'm not just talking about my church home, I'm talking about people on social media in general. Wherever you are, whoever you are, your story matters. And my prayer is that with every act of hate and malice and violence, there would be a tidal wave of generosity and kindness to encapsulate it, to immerse it, to pull it close, to pull it tight. Can you even imagine? And so it matters to show up. Not just in your words on Twitter, with your bodies, with your hearts, with your feet, with your hands. Because we are in a time and a place that needs you more than ever. Exactly how you are. Whether you think you deserve it or you don't, whether you speak and your voice trembles, gosh, you matter. Gosh, we need your voice. Because your experiences and who you are and the gifts that you hold matter. And so my hope, my prayer this Martin Luther King Monday is not only that we all dream together, but that we would move together. And it would become a movement of beloved community that will be a tidal wave of generosity and kindness that can just absolutely pull every action of malice, violence, or hate close, hold it tight, and invite it into a new reality. Thanks be to God.
Peace and love to you all out there. My name is Kendrick Hall. I am a 29-year-old African-American male, born and raised in North Minneapolis. About to be 30 very soon. this coming Monday, so wish me a happy birthday. But a little bit more about me. Like I said, I was born and raised in North Minneapolis. I went to Gustavus Adolphus College in 2009, ended up graduating in 2014 with my BA in Communication Studies, a minor in Political Science. After that, worked in the community in North Minneapolis for some time with Redeemer Lutheran Church as a youth director or supervisor, and also after that worked in the bike shop as a mechanic and later on becoming the assistant manager there. And then I ended up going to Luther Seminary, just graduated from there with my master's in divinity. The route is pastoral. I spent several months for my internship as a pastor in Nigeria, where I've learned about the beauty of the church there and with the closer connection to the Holy Spirit. And then I had to come home because of the pandemic, and I finished my internship with Salem Lutheran Church, which is also in North Minneapolis. So it's nice to come home and be in the community that I grew up in and being of service for a small period of time. Who is H-Cube? H-Cube is a grassroots organization that grew out of the pain and suffering of the community. Shortly before we brought H-Cube into the light, it was after the killing of Jamar Clark by Minneapolis police. And we were all trying to figure out a way, how can we create a space for people during these hard times so we can bond and embrace and be brave and safe and heal and build harmony together. And so a few of us sat down who were all connected through Redeemer, and we found that H-Cube was what it should be. And we were like, hey, H-Cube, Harrison, Healing, Harmony, H-Cube, it got a nice little ring to it. And so that's how H-Cube was birthed. Our first event was actually 4 days after Jamar Clark was killed by the police. And, that space was a space where we wanted to bring people to be able to speak their mind, either if they were just intellectuals, if they were artists, educators, whatever. We just wanted a space where we could all come together in light of all the darkness, to heal and harmonize with one another. And so HQ, we wanted to be of service to the community, and that's why we always provided a free meal. It's always free entry. And soon later on, we did dialogue sessions to build relationships. You have to be relational. I believe that when you're in relationship, it creates less tension and violence. You're more likely to handle situations more positively than you would negatively if you're not in relationship with someone. The encounter will be better suited to be taken care of in a more calm, cool, and collective way. And so that's what we aspire to do. We also advanced into giving away, needed things like, health kits and jackets and clothes to the community that needed as well. And so we evolved over the years in time. And so that's HQ. And now we're known as Hope, Healing, and Harmony because we want to expand. Now, why do I show up for the community? When I was at Gustavus, I started learning a lot about Black history and about myself, and it helped me understand why North Minneapolis looked the way it did. And for me, I just wanted to come back home and be of light in my community, especially for the next generation, so that we don't have to deal with the generational trauma and pain that we do over the years. And so that's why I show up for my community, to be a light so that the darkness could no longer exist. Thank you.
Hello there, friends. I am Miss Foreman. Some people call me Miss Shannon. So you put that together, and I'm Shannon Foreman. I am a mom. I have 2 daughters, one who is 7.5 and in the first grade at Wilshire Park, and one who is 6 and in kindergarten. And I am here to kind of talk to you a little bit about who I am, my story, and my journey. So I grew up in South Minneapolis, not that far from where you might be watching this from at Nativity. And I grew up in a very diverse neighborhood. So there were a lot of people who maybe didn't look like my skin color or have blonde hair and blue eyes. And one thing that I just absolutely loved about growing up in that area is learning about different cultures and different celebrations of life and love and all of the things, and honestly, a lot about the food. Because sometimes when we learn to love other cultures and things that are important to us, we learn them through our hearts, our bellies, and our minds. And one thing that has been really important to me is to continue those conversations about how do we make sure that we're showing love in the world and showing up in a space that is actually creating change, and change why? Because we're not all treated the same. Unfortunately, some people like me and those of you that have pale, as we call it, white skin, or in my household, sometimes refer to it as peach skin, we have privilege. And that's something that has been built on our country, and understanding that requires an education of history. And so throughout my life, I've been very impassioned by learning and putting myself in situations that allow me to learn beyond what I might learn in a book or what I might learn in a classroom. For instance, for me, something that has been very important to me is how I volunteer. So I actually work with a really awesome organization located right off of Lake Street. It is called Urban Ventures. And I have been involved with them for almost 7 years now, volunteering on a panel for them while also doing other things. Something that has been really impactful for me working through that organization is being still involved in the neighborhood that I grew up in and making change and a difference and empowering people. Empowering people means kind of like, you know, that feeling in your belly when you really get excited about something that you want to do and you know you can achieve it. That's that feeling of empowerment. And so we work at helping families make sure that they can realize their financial dreams through education and resources and providing them opportunities so that we don't have levels of poverty where people just aren't able to succeed in the same ways. So how do we change that? We change that by having conversations with our lawmakers, making sure that we are talking about the needs of everyone, not just those who might have, but those that might need more, and creating opportunities for them to be able to have more in their lives. So it's not necessarily that we write them a big check and that they go on. In fact, as we've heard through the Bible many times, if we teach a man or woman, not just man, to fish, we feed them for a lifetime rather than just giving them a fish. And so we open the doors and have the conversations with our community members to understand what it is that they really need and then help them, alongside them, create those opportunities. In addition, I also run my own business. And one of the things that I've spent my career in is helping people with money and helping them understand how they can be responsible with it and how they can use it for good in the world. And a lot of times, money is what really makes a lot of things happen. Like we have to pay our bills and we get paid to do our job. But how do we save and make sure that we don't spend all of our money? And that if something happens in our lives, we're able to do and cover things that we might not always be able to. So that's what I help people do. I help them plan for all the different changes that life might have. I also have conversations with my clients about how they want to make impacts in the world. And that's something that's important to me because we all need each other. And I know that we can't do it without each other. So when you might be saving a lot of money, you might have the ability to make impacts in other people's lives. So we talk a lot about that through my professional life. And I volunteer with Urban Ventures. I'm a part of that community, always making sure that we are listening to the voices of individuals that we are serving. And then I do the same work for my day-to-day job. And then I'm a mom. And that is a huge responsibility because I am responsible for making sure that my kids have opportunities to see different cultures, just like how I grew up, being able to be surrounded by many different cultures and learn different things and absorb the love and grace that other individuals might be able to offer me just the same way I can offer them. And a lot of times we learn those experiences by being in them. So for instance, I have brought my girls to many different cultural events that my friends might have from growing up, but also that our beloved Twin Cities has. We go down to Lake Street and we go shopping or out to eat when we can go out to eat. And we learn different things. This summer, after the murder of George Floyd, I took my kids down there to offer them a different level of education and have a conversation with them about police brutality and the mistreatment of brown and black people. And even at 8 and 6, or almost 8, she's 7.5 and 6 years old, we had some really fantastic conversations around what we can do and what questions we can ask. So thinking about this when you're talking to your parents, what are the things that we can do right here in our city? How do we know that people are being treated the same and not that there is a mistreatment of other individuals? So I challenge you, my young people who are our next generation of really creating change and love in this world, to think about questions that you could ask your parents. What are the things that we can do as a family? What are the things that you do, mom and dad, on a day-to-day basis to make a difference in this world? Because it is those little things that we can do to educate ourselves beyond just what we find in history books and just what we find in history class to make a difference in this world. What actions can we take? And how can we listen to each other so that we can understand? That's probably the most important thing, is that we listen. And we don't listen to respond and think about what we're going to say next. In fact, we listen to understand where that person is coming from. How many of you know the word empathy? Empathy is a big word. And a lot of times what empathy means is not necessarily putting ourselves in the positions of other people, like put yourself in somebody else's shoes. Empathy is just trying to listen to what somebody else might be feeling and having the compassion for them to understand what that feeling might be. Not how we would react in that situation or what our experiences have been, but really listening to what their experiences are. We can all learn from each other if we have an open heart and an open mind, and sometimes even an open belly, so that we can learn to appreciate other cultures and other people. So I hope that you are celebrating our great Dr. Martin Luther King today and every day by honoring those who might not look just like you, but showing them love, empathy, and compassion.
Today we're reading Counting on Community, written and illustrated by Inosanto Nagara. Living in a community, it's a lot of fun. Let's count the ways. Let's start with 1. And I invite you to find the ducks on every page. 1 stuffed piñata, for every holiday. 2 neighborhood friends, always there to play. 3 urban farmers, knee-deep in the mud. 4 fresh potatoes, 1 potato, 2 potato, 3 potato spud. 5 chunks of chalk on the sidewalk. 6 music makers who totally rock. 7 bikes and scooters and helmets to share. 8 picket signs showing that we care. 9 tasty dishes, yummy, yummy potluck. 10 hefty hens. Wait, is one of them a duck? So what can you count in your community? I can count on you, and you can count on me. The end.
Hey kids, my name is Kieran, and this is BTS. My favorite music group in the world. People think as kids we can't show up and change the world. But we can. BTS taught me a lot of things that can help us kids change the world. Be proud of who you are. It doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, you are awesome. Number 2, work hard. If someone tells you that you are not good at something, work hard and show them you can. Number 3, self-care. Love who you are, and it's okay to ask for help. Number 4, learn about other people. When you take some time to learn about someone else in another country, you learn a lot of really cool things. Number 5, laugh. Laughing can change the world because then you are not so serious all the time. Number 6, caring for other people. Caring for other people feels good and you make more friends. Number 7, show up. Sometimes helping can be hard, but people need us. Always things can help you be a good person, and being a good person can change the world. It doesn't matter how old you are, you can show up for your community. I designed t-shirts to help raise money for mine. If I can do it, so can you. So kids, let's show the adults how to change the world. Let's show up together.
My name is Reverend Gia Star Brown, and I'm one of the pastors at First Covenant Church in Minneapolis. I'm honored to be with you today for Show Up MLK Monday, thinking about ways that we as people can show up. As a follower of Jesus and his ministry, I believe in my heart that everything and every person God created is good and holy. The world around us disputes this, though, teaching harmful rhetoric that some of God's masterpieces are not equal to others. They're not as good as others, not as holy as others. These are all lies. Jesus' teaching disputes the world's messages of hate and exclusion. And anything we do to oppose these norms of injustice, well, it's countercultural. When we stand against oppression and exclusion, we are literally swimming upstream. We're walking uphill. We're going against the grain. And this is why showing up is so important, because it's time for change. It's time for uphill, upstream, going against the grain change. When I think about showing up, I consider it in 3 stages: physical, emotional, and in gospel fashion. When we show up physically, we place our bodies in physical or virtual spaces to learn and unlearn, to listen, contribute, and bridge in the forming of connections and relationships. I think of the power of immersion schools and curriculum, where students literally immerse themselves in the language and the culture of others to learn and to listen and to form authentic relationship and bonds. We can't understand each other if we don't connect with each other. We just end up being in close proximity to each other. Another way to show up, in addition to physically showing up, is emotionally. We've all been in spaces where we have been physically present, but sometimes emotionally absent. Showing up emotionally for another or for others involves not solely a commitment to enter these shared physical spaces, but also to emotionally invest as well. When we don't show up and invest emotionally, we miss important words and sentiments. We overlook cues. We bypass opportunities for learning and growing and understanding together. Showing up emotionally means hearing hard things, wrestling with challenging ideas, and investing our full selves into that connection. So when I think of showing up, I consider not only the physical implications or the emotional investments, but I also lean into the spiritual, the gospel piece as well. Placing ourselves physically into spaces may allow us to hear and experience conversations that we otherwise wouldn't have had, and cultural distinctions that we otherwise may not have previously recognized. And emotionally investing or showing up may create opportunities to listen and connect with our full selves. But it's only after we have invested physically and emotionally can the Spirit work in gospel fashion. When we are present and available and listening to what God is saying and doing in the midst of these spaces and interactions, we are fully showing up. Showing up in gospel fashion involves advocating for those whose voices are not listened to. It means embodying the gospel in Jesus' ministry by calling out the injustice that we can now see with these physical and emotional eyes. Showing up in gospel fashion involves saying what needs to be said, and not solely just what people want to hear. It brings us out of our comfort zones and brings us into spaces where, when we step out in faith, we can trust that God will fill the gaps of our shortcomings, because we all have them, and our blind spots, because we all have those too. Showing up in gospel fashion means allowing the Spirit to use us to support change, to bring change, and to be the change that we all need to see in the world. So you're here. You showed up. I'm so glad that you are with us in this physical virtual space. What does it look like for you to show up emotionally, invested in this here and not yet time and space of awareness and activism and liberation? I'm hoping with you and praying with you, and I'm committed to showing up fully with you, physically, emotionally, and in gospel fashion. Who's with me?
We March by Shane W. Evans. The morning is quiet. The sun rises. And we prepare to march. We pray for strength. We work together. We come from all over to march. We follow our leaders. We walk together. We sing.
Freedom in the history of our nation. This note was a promise.
We are hot and tired, but we are filled with hope.
Black men as well as white men would be guaranteed the
We lean on each other.
Of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
As we march to justice,
Seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of
to freedom,
hatred.
to our dreams.
Hi, my name is Jal Karandi, and I am a senior at the University of Minnesota in my final year studying finance and marketing with minors in business law and leadership. I came to the United States when I was 18 months old from the country of Kenya, and my parents were seeking an opportunity for all of us to reap some of the benefits in terms of post-education opportunities, whether it was jobs or going to market internships, whatever it was, but situating ourselves in a place in which we would have the opportunity for the best life that we could have. Alongside coming to America as immigrants came with the racism and the different things that are implemented in society that was foreign to them, different things as systemic pressures that exist that they were not necessarily exposed to in Kenya in the same way. And learning how to teach their children to engage in the system, to learn how to be members of society with these different pressures and the racism and the prejudice that existed. And that was something as a young girl I experienced in elementary school from my classmates, from those around me, constantly and consistently doubting my intellect, doubting my capabilities, or really what I could do. But in that I learned that the one thing they could never take away from me was my mind, how I thought, what I viewed on situations, what I benefited or I observed. They could never take that away from me. And when I finally grasped that understanding, it really forced me to say, what can I do about this? And to me, that immediately stemmed into leadership. I immediately felt as if this unique perspective that I brought and this understanding that I was able to grapple with and this God-given wisdom that I had, that I would be able to use that to help others, that I would be able to use that to lead others and help those around me. My family was always very humble, and growing up, we had many families living with us as they came from Kenya, came from other places, and needed a place to stay as they got on their 2 feet. My entire existence and how I've learned it through my parents has been servant leadership, is how you help others and what do you do for the benefit of the other. And so in understanding that, I always wanted to be a leader. And I can remember in elementary school thinking, like, this is my time to shine. This is what I'm supposed to do. And unfortunately was not granted leadership positions, no matter how hard I tried, no matter how I thought of myself as the best candidate. It was not given to me. And it wasn't that I was looking for someone to hand it over to me, but I was looking for someone to see the same potential that I saw in myself. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. And in middle school, I tried to do the same thing, and again, was rejected time and time after again. And in high school, I was like, this is my moment. This is my time to shine. And I really wanted to do something for our community. I went to a high school that was very community-based, very familial. Everyone was really looking for ways to help each other. And I said, this is the community I want to be a part of, and the community that I want to assist. And in doing so, I ran for student council, did not get it my freshman year. And I said, you know what, that's okay. I don't really know that many people. Let me try again. I tried again sophomore year and again was rejected. And I'm thinking to myself, I believe in myself that I have these God-given leadership qualities. I believe there's a reason I'm supposed to be here. There's oftentimes I would sit there and be thinking of ways I could help others or ways I could be benefiting our school population. And I knew that was what I was supposed to do. And I was wondering where the discrepancy existed. What did I see in myself that maybe they weren't seeing? And I remember I asked my sister if we could talk to the then student council president and say, could I just be a non-voting member? And I was my sophomore year, and ended up at that year running for vice president, and I won. And then I was president my senior year, and I knew that this is what I was supposed to do. And it was in those moments of ending my senior year, being president of multiple clubs and leading multiple clubs, that I knew that leadership was where I was supposed to be. And coming into the university, that was no different. But being a Black woman, I experienced pressures that I hadn't necessarily seen in my high school community. More than ever, no one really looked like me, but even beyond that, my capabilities were the doubt was heightened. It was the belief that somehow, some way, I had escaped and made it here on some miracle. It was the belief that somehow I had managed to get there in some fault of the process. And that was frustrating to me, because not only had I proved myself worthy, in fact, I had excelled. And so having to take these different moments and try to find ways to further the work that I was doing and further what I needed to do was important. Because what I never wanted was for me, where I was able to find my benefit, for me, how I was able to stand on my own 2 feet, was remembering that no one could ever take away my mind. It didn't matter that they saw a Black woman and doubted me. It didn't matter that they saw me and immediately assumed who I was, what I knew, and where I came from. It was important to me and myself that I stood on my own 2 feet. I refused to sit there and say that they were going to be defining of the moment that I was going to have. There's no system that was going to define my intellect or my path or my success. And so in that, I knew that I wanted to be in student government, and I wanted to make a change, because my purpose has always been, I want to make this a better place for the young girls. I want to make it for the same young child that was in elementary school and experiencing these pressures. I never want that to happen to anyone else ever again. And in every place in which I am in, it is then my responsibility to make it that much better, because those that came before me were doing their best to make it better for me. So it is in an effort to return not only that favor, but ensure that I continue to lift as I climb, continue to do things that benefit our future generations to be better. And in that, I ended my junior year as the first undergraduate student body Black president. And that was an amazing, and it was amazing to me and so humbling. One, because it's too far coming. It should have happened a long time ago, because it's not that the capability wasn't there. It was that there's so many barriers in place to reach that point. But to me, it was inspiring because I could inspire somebody else. I was almost inspired by the fact that people believed in me, believed in my leadership, believed in what I could do, believed in the ways I could lead them, and the trust that they were giving me. It was humbling. And in that, I worked hard to make sure that our university understood that the voices of our underrepresented students, the voices of students that have often been kept out of our educational system, that the voices of students that live just minutes from our university who aren't given the same access to our university were heard. It was important to me that this happened, especially after the murder of George Floyd, and asking our university to no longer work with the Minneapolis police force, because murder is not we can never condone murder. We can never call murder a partisan issue. And it is our job, it is our duty to continue to make this place on earth where people are as safe as possible for every single member of its community. For everyone that exists here, they should not have to fear the very mechanisms in which are supposed to provide them safety. And it was important to me to make that call to action. And it was to make sure that people understood that we are here for a reason. And students, Black students, brown students, all of our underrepresented students at our university are deserving to be here. They deserve to be in the seats that they sit in. And it was important to me to make sure that was implemented and that people understood that. You know, Angela Rice said something that has always kept me very close, that have kept very close to me. And she said, you know, this country promises 3 liberties of life, liberty and the pursuit of happiness, and we're still stuck at life. And it is our job, it is our duty as citizens, as people who exist here on this earth that has been gifted to us, to make these changes, to do the right thing, and to make sure that everyone is heard in the way that they're supposed to be heard, to make sure that people are offered the same exact rights that they are given, that people are given equitable opportunities, and it's our duty to do that. This is not a matter that should be partisan. We don't get to choose who gets to live and who gets to die. It is not our duty to discuss someone's existence. It is our duty to make sure that we are treating people exactly the way that we want to be treated, that we are treating people with the respect that they deserve, and that we are doing the right thing. And the right thing is clear. It should not be something that people get to decide. It should not be a blurred issue. In fact, it is quite black and white, and there is no middle ground, that we must do what is right. And in this time and nations, it's more important that we not only speak, but we act. Thank you.
On the day of your birth, the Creator filled countless storehouses and stockings with rich ointments, luscious tapestries, and antique coins of incredible value, jewels worthy of a queen's dowry. They were set aside for your use alone.
Armed with faith and hope, and without knowing of the wealth which awaited, you broke through dense walls of poverty and loosened the chains of ignorance which threatened to cripple you so that you could walk into a world which needed you. My wish for you is that you continue.
Continue to be who and how you are, to astonish a mean world with your acts of kindness. Continue to allow humor to lighten the burden of your tender heart. Continue, in a society dark with cruelty, to let the people hear the grandeur of God in the peals of your laughter.
Continue to let your eloquence elevate the people to heights they had only imagined. Continue to remind the people that each is as good as the other, and that no one is beneath or above.
Continue to remember your own young years and look with favor upon the lost and the least and the lonely. Continue to put the mantle of your protection around the bodies of the young and defenseless.
Continue to take the hand of the despised and diseased and walk proudly with them in the high street. Some might see you and be encouraged to do likewise. Continue to plant a public kiss of concern on the cheek of the sick and the aged and infirm, and count that as a natural action to be expected.
Continue to let gratitude be the pillow upon which you kneel to say your nightly prayer,
And let faith be the bridge you build to overcome evil and welcome good. Continue to ignore no vision which comes to enlarge your range and increase your spirit. Continue to dare to love deeply and risk everything for the good thing.
Continue to float happily in the sea of infinite substance, which set aside riches for you before you had a name. Continue, and by doing so, you and your work will be able to continue eternally.
Hello, my name is Christine Belfry, also known as Christine Free. Hey, my peeps. I have worked as an educator in the community of North Minneapolis, as well as South Minneapolis, as a teacher, as a community organizer, in other capacities. I served on several boards in the past as well. I also have been and am known to be a singer. I love to sing songs from the songs of my elders, songs that take us back. So I'm known to be a singer in the community, but also in churches and out in the world in the community. I'm also a writer and a recent graduate of Lutheran Seminary, where I recently received my master's in divinity to move forward in ministry in the capacity of a pastor and minister. Why do I show up for the community? Well, the community is everything, everything to me. I have been blessed, again, to work in the community of North and South Minneapolis, as I stated earlier, as an educator, minister, writer, teacher, singer. So blessed to have grown up in a time when the community had wrapped their arms around me when I was growing up and mentored me from elementary as a child all the way up into adulthood. So I believe that it is my my task, and I believe it's a high call to also give back, right, to the community that gave so much to me. And I feel like, how can I not give back to my community when they have blessed me along the way? My elders and my family and people in the community that I was raised again in North and South Minneapolis. From the community love and guidance and mentorship that I received along the way, that prompted me to want to get up out of Minnesota and attend a HBCU college, Clark Atlanta University, where I was nurtured all the more as a young adult by mentors that were just so great, right, in terms of professors and instructors at Clark Atlanta University. And from that space of nurturing, I knew it was my call to come back to my community here in Minneapolis, North and South Minneapolis, to mentor those young adults and from elementary all throughout college, as I again had received such mentorship and guidance along the way that is absolutely assisted in making me who I am today as an adult and as a singer, educator, writer, and all of that, and as well as a mother. So I'm grateful for the community, and I feel like it's time more than ever for those that have been mentored and guided and loved and nurtured to let our voices be heard, right? In this time where we are still fighting and seeking justice on behalf of the marginalized and the broken. And so I feel like it is all the more time for us to continue to speak up and let our voices be heard out in the community through action steps, whether it's educating, advocating on the front lines, in other different ways. I feel like it's time for us in the church and those in the community to continue to work on behalf of our community. So that's why I show up. At HQ is everything. I feel like we are able to provide a space of healing and nurturing for our people, our young people and older people, in particular marginalized populations, but all are welcome at the HQ space to be heard, to be respected, to be valued, to be nurtured, to be cared for. I feel like HQ is this space where we live out the embodiment of Christ, right? We don't just talk about it. We ain't hiding behind church doors, but we out there doing what we can do in the capacity that we're able to provide a sense of love and welcome, belongingness, right? A sense of belongingness. And we really work to make all people's voices heard in the HQ space and valued. And it doesn't matter where you come from. Come on in these doors, you belong here. And we're able to express that through the arts, right? Which is so beautiful, song and painting and writing and fellowship in so many different various ways. So I'm grateful for the HQ space and grateful for you, right? For taking this time to hear our voices so that we can continue to work forward, move forward in this collective way of justice and providing love and healing and belongingness for all those, especially those that are on the margins. So yay. Thank you for listening again, Christine Free.
Hello, beautiful and powerful people. Joe Davis here. I am an artist in the community, and it is a joy to be with you today as we honor the legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He is one of my biggest heroes. His work for freedom and justice is highly influential in the way that I create as an artist and the way I organize in the community. When I think about his legacy, I think about how so many of us admire that fire that he had. He showed up with this courage, right? And this conviction and this compassion. But sometimes we put all those characteristics, all those qualities at a distance. And we look at his accomplishments as if they're superhuman, right? I think we forget that same courage and conviction and compassion, that same fire can live within us, because King is one of our ancestors of faith, one of our ancestors in the struggle for freedom and justice. But that fire that he had, he gave it to us. He passed it on as if it were a baton, as if it were a torch that we can carry forward as well. So we have work to do today, and we have to be just as organized, just as courageous, just as convicted, just as compassionate. We have to be committed to showing up the same way that King showed up if we want to see true liberation, true healing. We really want to reach that goal of justice and freedom for all. And because of that, I wanted to write a poem to remind us that is truly possible. This poem is called The King Lives, and it serves as a radical reminder that same fire, that same spirit that lived in Dr. King still lives with us today if we allow it to live in us. The King lives. Yeah, I hope that this can be something that you meditate on and reflect on and can truly just apply in your daily life, because that's the only way it's gonna work, y'all. The King lives. The King, the King, the King lives in me. The King, the King, the King lives in you. The King, the King, the King lives in us. If they listen from a distance, they can hear us come. Drum majors for justice as we hit the drum, with our fist and our spirits lifted up, for peaceful resistance and the strength to love. The King lives. Can we please not speak on King's dream unless we're working to make his dream come true? Two Americas. It's the same thing that the dream means to me, the same thing that the dream means to you. King had a strategic action plan, so much more than just a dream. He spoke truth to power, so much more than just a speech. He fought for justice from the church to the courts to the streets. He was determined, not deterred by denial or defeat. The King lives. The King lives in me. The King lives in you. The King lives in us. If they listen from a distance, they can hear us come. Drum majors for justice as we hit the drum, with our fists and our spirits lifted up, for peaceful resistance and the strength to love. The King lives. Before he died, he went on strike with sanitation workers. Now we sanitize his work as we stay safe above the surface, quoting his words out of context without learning of the deeper purpose. He made politicians nervous, and he gave the people moral courage. Why America May Go to Hell was his last sermon most have never heard of. He was such a threat to the system that the system had him murdered. And yet, the King lives in me. The King lives in you. The King lives in us. If they listen from a distance, they can hear us come. Drum majors for justice as we hit the drum, with our fists and our spirits lifted up, for peaceful resistance and the strength to love. The King lives. One king died 2,000 years ago on Calvary. Another king died on a Tennessee balcony. But there's a mountaintop on whose peak we'll all finally meet, where we'll answer the call of freedom's resounding ring. Some will bow a knee. Some will shout and sing. The dream lives, the King lives, deep down in you, deep down in me. That same spirit of resilience and tenacity is the same spirit I pray that I have in me. That same spirit of justice and healing truth is the same spirit I pray still lives in you. The King lives. Thank y'all. Let's keep showing up for justice, showing up for healing, showing up for love, just as Dr. King taught us. Peace and love, all power to the people.
We're here, baby. Our ancestors' wildest dreams. We were each called to this place, this time in the season. You may not yet know the rhyme or the reason. You may not feel, think, or believe in the same things I believe in. But we've been asked to show up. Show up from wherever you are from. You can come here to be free. Bring your full self, both your head and your heart, your hands and your feet, and anything and everything infinitely beyond any duality, your sexuality, gender, race, age, or ability. We all have the ability to be. Without you, I'm incomplete. Without you, there is no we. I need you not just to survive, but to thrive, to come fully awake and alive with potential and possibility. I need you to show up.
You may be hurting or afraid. Show up or gather healing on the way. Show
up means to advocate for equity and for justice.
Show up, dream of the world we will create. Show up.
Join me at the table, for it is wide and there's lots of food to eat. So show up and be fed and feed others, satiating a different kind of hunger, fueling the fire in our bellies. No matter what journey you're on, no matter where you've been or what you've done, all will be well because we're all welcome. You're invited to respond and enjoy a song or a contemplative nod, to laugh, cry, dance right, breathe, and bleed into the margins and follow the call to the farthest reaches of who we are. Whether you run, walk, crawl, even if you fall, we fall.
Show up to one another.
Show up, we'll gather healing on the way. Show up, we will be strong, we will be brave. Show up, dream of the world we will create.
Show up means go out there and stand for justice.
Show up to answer a prophetic call to justice, to transform both the soul and the bodily world the soul inhabits. Show up with all your awkwardness and bad habits. Show up with your doubts and questions, knowing here you can ask them. Show up with your wounds.
Showing up means being present in the moment and listening.
Showing up means being focused and learning.
You're not here by accident. You are here to share the stories of your sacred passage. You are the only you there ever has been. You are not the magician, you are the magic. So show up to this place here where there is no grace period, there's only grace period. Bring your fears.
Show up means stand up for what you believe in.
Holy listening. Can you hear it? Can you hear it? That is the sound of the genuine within you. The spirit stirring near you, but if you don't show up, how can anyone hear you? Show up. Even if you don't know for certain, you may have the truth and healing which this world is searching. In this grand universe, we are but small workers, but with a big purpose, because of our hearts widening the circle. Hearts that are open, hearts that are broken, so a little light can shine through, a little hope for the hopeless.
Came with a swag that was so unique. Fly the flag and embrace the freak. Bring your off-pitch singing in your ugly feet. You're a piece of the puzzle and the puzzle is piece. It's like that, y'all. That's all. You don't have to act hard. You can just relax, kick back, take the mask off. That costume costs a lot. Don't watch all your thoughts come off the top. Don't wait till you got it all down. You might dig it like a volleyball. Found life where you only thought death was. Guess what? You messed up. Think you're extra. Don't diss the disbelief. Don't miss the mystery. Your history's history. Without
show up means to treat people with equity.
Your feet are speaking loudly by bringing you here. Your presence is worth more than 1,000 speeches. Your intentions have been made clear. Your mere body is a statement. Your flesh is a hedge of protection.
Show up to hear and see and love one another just as we are.
Your shrinking violent routine is bringing violence to the scene. So wake up, partner up, study up, listen up, keep up, read up, look up, don't give up, and most importantly, show up.
You may be hurting or afraid. Show up, we'll gather healing on the way. Show up, we will be strong, we will be brave. Show up, dream of the world we will create. Show up.
Wherever you go, simply know the spirit of this place goes with you. So go, ready with sleeves rolled up, always growing, never fully grown up. Ready with all your heart, mind, body, and soul, simply to show up. We're here, baby. Our ancestors' wildest dreams. We were each called to this place, this time in the season. You may not yet know the rhyme or the reason. You may not feel, think, or believe in the same things I believe in. But we've been asked to show up. Show up from wherever you are from. You can come here to be free. Bring your full self, both your head and your heart, your hands and your feet, and anything and everything infinitely beyond any duality, your sexuality, gender, race, age, or ability. We all have the ability to be. Without you, I'm incomplete. Without you, there is no we. I need you not just to survive, but to thrive, to come fully awake and alive with potential and possibility. I need you to show up.
You may be hurting or afraid. Show up, we'll gather another healing on the way.
Show up to one another.